I'm Grindle and welcome to Sci-Fi Mineshaft. Today we're going to have a look at the animated Star Wars The Clone Wars movie, which is basically the Star Wars holiday special of the Star Wars prequels.
So for those of you that don't know, Star Wars The Clone Wars movie is a 2008 animated film which for some unfathomable reason was given an honest-to-God theatrical release. And apparently it's not just me that's confused why this was given a theatrical release. People who actually made the movie are confused as to why it was made into a movie and why it was actually released in cinema. Once again using my favourite and most reliable source ever, Wikipedia, we're told that the movie was woven together from footage that was intended to be the first few episodes of the show, which explains why it has such ridiculously terrible pacing and feels like nothing more than an over-bloated TV pilot. It literally is. Furthermore, Wikipedia kindly gives us a quote from George Lucas, who apparently described the film as almost an afterthought, which it absolutely feels like. It also caused Howard Rothman, the president of Lucas Licensing, to say sometimes George works in strange ways, which sounds like less than an endorsement. But as I said, I've just gotten all of that information off of Wikipedia, so take it with a grain of salt. I'm not going to further research it to see if it's true, because it's really not that relevant. You can review a film without researching into its background too much. I was just looking at it out of interest, and found it sort of interesting, and sort of funny. But let's get on with the review itself. One of my major disappointments I faced while watching the film was how much potential it had, and how much potential it squandered. As the title of the film suggests, this movie is set during the Clone Wars, which means it takes part between episode 2 and 3, just as the entire Clone Wars series does. And at this point I must stress that this is a review of the Clone Wars movie, not the series in its entirety, just the movie. And so, with a title like The Clone Wars, I was expecting there to be, well, a lot of the Clone Wars in it. However, this was simply not delivered. The first one-third of the film does in fact contain the Battle of Christophsis, however you pronounce that, and it was actually thoroughly entertaining. By itself, it would have made a fantastically enjoyable episode of the Clone Wars series, and you could have probably even combined Season 2 Episode 16 and Season 1 Episode 16 with that section of the movie and made a pretty good feature-length TV special and called it the Battle of Christophsis, as Season 2 Episode 16 and Season 1 Episode 16 are the first two parts of that story arc. The Clone Wars airs in a very strangely ordered way for some reason. And admittedly, while I was watching the Battle of Christophsis, I was thinking, geez, my memory has not served me well. I remember hating this film, and now it's actually pretty good. But unfortunately, the first third of the movie ends along with the Battle of Christophsis, and it gets into the second two-thirds, which is when it turns to crap. In this section of the film, which I can only assume was cobbled together from a two-parter episode, the Jedis have to find and rescue Jabba the Hutt's son.
Why make it about Jabba's son? And since when did Jabba even have a son? We don't see the son in the entire saga, and yet this entire movie is focused on him. And out of all the possible plot points for a sci-fi movie, set during a Clone War, why did we have to sit and watch two space wizards babysitting an annoying slug offspring?
And on that point, why was it Obi-Wan and Anakin that got chosen for it? We're told that they're the only ones that can be spared, but they're actually really terrible choices. I mean, for one, Anakin hates the Hutts because he grew up as a slave on Tatooine, and for two, the job would probably take them to Tatooine at some point, and it's well known that last time Anakin was on Tatooine, he almost went dark side. So why would you want to send Anakin to deal with a delicate situation regarding someone he hates on a planet that almost turned him into the most evil person on the galaxy last time he was there? And actually, a third thing for that matter, they were supposedly only chosen because they were the only ones available at the time. But then it's quickly found out that they're not actually available at the time because the Battle of Christophsis is still raging. So surely in that time, they could have found a different Jedi to send who was less likely to turn into a manic serial killer while he was on Tatooine. But whatever, that's not the only ridiculously terrible part of this movie that we're going to have to endure, so let's move on. Jabba the Hutt's son has been kidnapped by the Separatists, which actually becomes even more convoluted later on, but he's been kidnapped by the Separatists, we'll say for now. And so the Separatists and the Jedi have to try to find where Jabba's son is. If the Jedi successfully return the child, the Hutts will side with the Republic and allow them to travel through Hutt-controlled space. And I suppose if the Separatists return the child, they get a similar deal. However, instead of just holding the child for a little while and then returning him and claiming that the Separatists found them, they also seem to want to make the Hutts think that the Jedi killed the child, so the Hutts turn against the Jedi. So once the Jedi manage to successfully get the child, they have to fight through Separatist forces to get him back to Tatooine. The child is not, in fact, a child, but a baby, which means throughout the entire film we have to hear it making annoying baby noises, including that high-pitched whining noise that babies make, which my research team tells me is called crying. That's right, folks. You no longer need to bring your annoying crying child into the cinema to ruin the experience for everyone. They put the annoying crying child in the movie itself to save you time. What upstanding blokes.
Oh, he's just a baby. Oh, he's so cute.
I'm just so glad they put this scene in the film. When I was watching the Star Wars saga, the whole time I was thinking, yeah, it's good, but it could do with an annoying teenage girl baby talking to a disgusting slug spawn.
And on the subject of the annoying teenage girl, Ahsoka Tano, I don't actually hate her as a character overall. She actually becomes quite good in the Clone Wars series, and she's very good in Star Wars Rebels. But in Star Wars The Clone Wars movie, she is insufferable. Constantly screwing up, constantly bickering, and constantly talking in baby talk to the stupid Hutt child, Ahsoka is one of the worst things in this film.
Watching these scenes where it's literally just Anakin and Ahsoka arguing feels like when you're working in retail and the customers you're serving start having a domestic with each other. It's just super awkward and super cringeworthy.
And I get that her level of incompetence and lack of discipline is there to give her room to evolve as a character over time, and she does in fact evolve in character over time, but the fact of the matter is it doesn't help for this movie. She is insufferably annoying in this movie, and no amount of knowledge that she gets better in a later show helps that she's so annoying in this film.
Come on.
Wait!
Why? We're almost there.
Damn it, Ahsoka! You're basically the Wesley Crusher of this film! They might as well have gotten Will Wheaton to voice act you!
While the Jedi are rescuing the Hutt child from the Separatists, the storyline develops further as you might expect it would. The Separatists begin their plans to frame the Jedi as planning to kill the Hutt child and overthrow the Hutt clan. However, the way they do this is ridiculous. Ventress, the Sith assassin, try saying that 3 times fast, is sent in by Count Dooku to capture footage of the Jedi to misuse in order to show that they're planning to do something they're not. And luckily her plan succeeds because Anakin Skywalker says that he hates the Hutts.
I hate Hutts.
The reason that this makes me upset is because, as I was complaining about earlier, this means that the Jedi Council literally sent in the only Jedi in the entire Order who would make this convoluted plan possible. No other Jedi in the entire Order is likely to express a hatred for the Hutts while saving a Hutt child. It's a very un-Jedi thing to do. Good thing they sent in Anakin, right? Anyway, after this overly convenient plot device, the Jedi manage to get the child and escape.
This smells like Count Dooku to me.
I think it's little stinky you smell.
Oh great! Now that's a line in the Star Wars saga. You can put that right next to the most quotable lines of Star Wars, like "May the Force be with you," and I have a bad feeling about this. And now...
I think it's little stinky you smell.
Anyway, what follows are some more scenes which a more gullible person might mistakenly believe is a plot. We get some more bickering, we get some more crying, we get more stinky... There is, quite honestly, shining through this terrible pile of awful, some stuff that doesn't suck at all. It could have been good. There are cool battle scenes, there's Count Dooku who is actually voiced by Christopher Lee. The music's not bad, it's just drowned out though by the terrible plot, terrible dialogue, annoying crying, annoying bickering, baby talk, stinky, whatever. Anyway, eventually they arrive at Jabba the Hutt's palace.
And just when you thought that the annoying bickering, half-assed plot and crying baby were enough to make this movie terrible, we're introduced to Zero the Hutt. Zero the Hutt is about as enjoyable as taking a cheese grater to your ear holes.
Zero the Hutt is introduced because Padme Amidala takes it upon herself to investigate the situation. She meets up with Zero the Hutt, who is apparently the Hutt clan's presence on Coruscant, and she tries to talk to him. However, as it turns out, Zero the Hutt is surprise behind everything. Well, almost everything. Count Dooku is behind Zero the Hutt, but Zero the Hutt is behind the kidnapping, which is, as I said, convoluted and confusing, and this is what I alluded to earlier in the video. He being behind it, and Padme just happening to stumble upon the fact that he is behind it just in time to save the day, is once again convenient to the degree of ludicrousy. Aside from it being an overly convenient way to tie up the story and end it quickly, His involvement adds absolutely nothing to the plot, because once again the Separatists were behind him. If you literally just removed Zero the Hutt, it would have not changed anything about the plot, except for the fact that we were easily able to tie it up in a neat little bow very quickly in the last 10 minutes, which is exactly what Zero the Hutt is, a plot device, and not a very good one. However, on top of being a completely unnecessary character which was just inserted as a plot device to lazily end the show, Zero the Hutt is himself as a character the worst thing I have ever seen in my life. I honestly hate Zero the Hutt way more than I hate Jar Jar. His voice and way of talking gives me an instant headache, and he looks like he doesn't belong in the Star Wars universe at all.
A senator in this neighborhood?
He really is the final nail in the coffin which is being used to bury the Hutt's reputation as being scary gangsters. A lot of people complain that the remastered version of Episode 4 added in a badly rendered version of Jabba the Hutt, which made his mythos a lot less scary, because instead of hearing rumours about Jabba the Hutt, and then finally seeing the scary slug monster in person in Episode 6, we just see him straight up in bad CG in Episode 4. However, what the special edition did to the Hutt's reputation is nothing compared to what this movie does to them. What was once a scary villainous gang lord that ruled from a palace in the middle of a desert planet is now turned into a galactic laughingstock. Any illusions of the Hutts as actually being credible villains is shattered by this film. As we are shown a crying baby Hutt, we see Jabba the Hutt himself refer to his child as Punky Muffin.
The most gracious Jabba has one more small condition. He demands you bring back the slime who kidnapped his little Punky Muffin.
And we are exposed to the atrocious dung heap of character creation that is Zero the Hutt. It is for these reasons I have named, and probably many others that I haven't found but would if I could somehow sit through this terrible film for a third time, that the Star Wars Clone Wars movie is one of the worst Star Wars movies ever made, and is the worst part of the current Star Wars canon.
So there you have it. Star Wars The Clone Wars movie. The prequel trilogy's answer to the original trilogy's Star Wars The Holiday Special. We can only hope that Disney will break the mold and Rogue One won't be a terrible spin-off disaster, but only time will tell. Until then, thanks for watching. This has been Sci-Fi Mineshaft, and I have been and still am Grim Grindle.